Welcome back to the Laravel News Creator Series. Today I have the one and only Aaron Francis here. He is, I feel like everybody knows Aaron at this point, but welcome to the show, Aaron.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's like the one person that don't need any introduction is you and Taylor because you're just kind of everywhere, all over my feeds.
That's the goal.
I'm curious. This. We'll just start off before we jump into the code. Like,
Okay.
how did that progression start? Because I feel like I didn't really know you until like
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, 3 years ago, and then now you're just everywhere. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
was it just like instantly like you hit something and then you were famous from then on, or was it just a?
I mean, it. I think it probably was that discrete. It was like a moment in time. I've been using Laravel probably since 2014. And so I've been around, but then, yeah, a few years ago, I realized that I was doing all this, like, what I thought was interesting stuff and then just never talking about it online. And so I started just talking about it online, and turns out that is what makes the big difference. And so, yeah, that was a couple years ago, and I just have kept talking, and it keeps working.
I love that. It's surprisingly hard to talk about stuff you're working on, or at least for me. Like, it's like throughout the day, I'm like, this is kind of cool. Maybe I should share it, but then I'm like, nobody really cares about this at all.
Mm-hmm,
Like,
mm-hmm,
so why even
mm-hmm.
share it? So you got to get over that hurdle, right? It's
You
like
do.
that's hard to do.
Yep.
I know you actually. I think you just gave a talk on all this.
I did, yeah.
But yeah, so it's like,
Yeah.
so if you want to get better about sharing stuff online, go watch Aaron's talk, which we'll have in the show notes.
Yeah, and it's a updated and adapted version of the talk I gave at Laracon Nashville, like a little more than a year ago. And so that one's online as well, the Laracon Nashville talk. Same idea, but this past weekend was updated to include all the stuff that's happened since then, which is a lot.
It was a whole lot. Yeah, it's yeah, you're super busy. Like, so we'll just jump into like one of your projects that you started recently. It's called Solo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, give me, why did you create this?
So, a few weeks before I started Solo, which I'll explain in a second, but a few weeks before I started that, Taylor released a new, it's not even a package. It's basically like a script. So in the new Laravel skeleton, the framework, like when you download it to create an app, there's a new script in there. I think it's like composer run dev or something. And that composer run dev script like delegates down to an npm package called concurrently. And what concurrently does is it runs three or four processes. It runs as many as you want, but in our case, it runs three or four processes at once, and it kind of munges all the output. So it like puts all the output in together. So in the situation where you're starting a new Laravel application, you run composer run dev, and it starts, goodness, what does it start? The Vite dev server, the PHP, HTTP, like development server. Does it start anything else? It does. The queues, maybe.
I think you're right. I think it
I
does
think it
do
starts the
queues.
queues or something like that.
It might even run PHP Artisan Serve. I can't remember.
I think it
remember
does.
like
Yeah.
a whole bunch of stuff.
And so he released that, and I used it, and I was like, hey, this is really convenient. And then I thought, oh, the logs, it tails the logs. And then I thought, wait, this is kind of a mess because, every time every time you type a single character in a JavaScript file or a Vue template or something, you get this new output on your screen, and then your logs are kind of like scrolling off the screen too fast because your Vue stuff or your Vite stuff is like taking up a bunch of space. And so I didn't like having it all intertwined. I didn't like having it all mixed up, and I thought I could probably write something in PHP to do this. And then I remembered that our dear friend Joe Tannenbaum has a course on Laracasts about like building command line interfaces, basically. I think technically they're called TUIs, which is like a textual user interface. I don't know. I made that up. And I thought, okay, well, this is a fun thing to learn. And so I watched Joe's course, which is just fantastic, as all Laracast courses are. I watched his course, and then I was like, sure, how hard could this be? Famous last words. And so in like 2 or 3 days, I had the first the first prototype up and running. And so what Solo is it is it's a Laravel package that serves the same purpose as concurrently does over in the node ecosystem, but it provides you with a single process that you can run. So you just run PHP artisan Solo, and what Solo will do is it'll bring up in your terminal, it's almost like a dashboard looking thing. It's got tabs across the top and hotkeys across the bottom, and then in the middle is a big pane of output, and you can run as many processes through Solo as you want. So like in a typical setup, you would start the logs, you would start PHP artisan serve, and then you would start the queue workers and maybe reverb and maybe some other stuff, right? Every team has their own stuff that they need to run locally, and so with Solo you can just configure it. There's like a Solo service provider, and you can just configure it such that when you start Solo, it starts all these commands, and then you can like arrow between them. So there's tabs at the top, you arrow between them, and it shows the output of each individual command individually. And you can like stop commands, restart them, clear the output. And then the rabbit hole that I went down is interactive processes. So you can run basically like PHP artisan make, but you need to start typing some stuff in there, right? And so I figured out how you can, through much pain, like go interactive into one of your processes that's running in Solo. So you can hit the I key and then start typing and then like actually interact with the underlying process, and then you can bail out when you're done. And so it has grown basically into a process manager, and I think very similar to Tmux, but I've never actually used Tmux, so this is maybe Tmux for normies. So that's kind of the pitch for Solo, and it's been a ton of fun, but also I've gone deeper into like the command line and terminal stuff than I ever expected that I would.
Well, are you going to have other use cases for all the terminal stuff you're learning, or along with building the Solo, or is this just sort of a fun, secondary side project that you just thought would be fun to do?
Yeah, so that's always the question, right? Especially now that, and we'll probably get to this, now that I don't have a full-time job, there's always a question of like, what's the ROI here? And some of that I try not to worry about up front, but I do have, a business partner, and I'm like, hey, I'm spending my time on this. Here's why I think it makes sense. And so I think, like the biggest reason I'm doing it is because I just wanted it for myself. And I think it's good. I think it's a good gift to the community, as DHH talks about open source. Like, it's just a gift. You can take it, you don't have to, but I made this and I think it's nice. Here you go, everyone have it. Now that we're so deep into it, there's a good argument that there are a couple packages that I've written inside this single Solo package that I should kind of carve out and make into the Solo namespace. One, for example, is I've written a full terminal emulator in PHP. And so that's one of those things that I could carve out, and it could be its own standalone package that could potentially be helpful for other people. And then there's the actual Solo process one, there's the screen emulator, and then there's a bunch of ANSI manipulation stuff that I've written, because in the terminal, to turn some text red, you type in these crazy characters that are invisible and it turns the text red. And so I've done a ton of work around that to make that a sane user experience, and I could carve that out as well into another package. And then I think, a lot of what I do is create content, and I think it would be fun to do basically a rebuild where I, sit down in one day and re-implement it from scratch and do one of those one of those crazy 6-hour YouTube videos that people do sometimes. And we'll see if it works. I've never done one like that. So there are a lot of places I could take it. Of course, I could do conference talks. I could write articles. So I'm trying everything that I do. I try to make serve multiple purposes. Because if it's just one thing, well, we've got 10 other ideas that could serve multiple purposes. So we would have to pick those instead. So that's kind of how I think about spending time on something like this.
Right. I gotcha. It's pretty sweet. So one of the questions that was asked actually Yannick asked me. He's like, "Is ask Aaron if he thinks this will eventually become part of core Laravel."
That is always an interesting question to me. I don't know, and I don't hardly ever push for anything to become core Laravel. I wrote a package years ago called pseudo demons or pseudo daemons, and it was a way to run scheduled commands, basically like sub 1 minute. So it used to be in Laravel that you could run scheduled commands every minute. I needed something that was basically like an infinite loop, like a daemon, basically, that was like constantly polling the database every 2, 3, 4 seconds. And so I wrote this big package for it. Worked out great. Maintained it for a couple years, and then later Taylor DM'd me and he was like, "Hey, do you still use this package?" It's like, "Yeah, it's awesome." He said, "Okay, well, we're thinking about implementing sub-second processes in Laravel." And I was like, "Take whatever you need." Like, I don't think he took anything from my package, but my point was, hey, I've battle tested this. It's been in production for many years. Like, have at it. And I think I prefer that method because I don't want to be on the hook for messing up Laravel, frankly. Like I don't want to come in with this. At this point, this solo package is ginormous. I don't want to come in with this package and cause a bunch of headaches for Taylor and Dries and whoever's maintaining, the open source side of Laravel at this point. And so what I would rather do is spend a year or 2 or 3 fleshing it out, just eating that glass by myself. And then if they want to come along and adopt it somehow, that's totally fine for me. I think there is a world in which the application skeleton could ship with this my package composer required without having to like hand it over to the Laravel organization. Because when you hand it over to the Laravel organization, as much as I will say, sure, yeah, I'll keep maintaining it, I could just walk away. And then it's on somebody else's shoulders and they didn't write the code, and that sucks. And so I anticipate they'll add it at some point if it's good enough to the framework, like this application starter, but not the actual Laravel organization. That's just a guess.
So the next thing, you have 3 courses now. Let me think if I can go through the history. You started with screencasting.
I did.
Then you did SQLite and then Postgres. Is that the sort of the way you went through and launched all these?
Yep, that is correct. The deep lore is I also have an accounting course for sophomores at Texas A&M University. I did that one in 2016, and then right before screencasting, I did MySQL for developers for my former employer. And so I think that is the totality of my courses. But yeah, as a solo entering into the money-making online world, screencasting was my first real big one, although accounting did some money over many, many years. But the real big ones are the 3 that you mentioned.
Gotcha. It's sort of interesting because you would think the accounting one would actually have a way bigger market than databases or screencasting.
Yeah, it doesn't, because it is the topic is Introduction to Financial Accounting for college students. Like it's not like learn how to do bookkeeping for entrepreneurs, which is on our list of like ideas. But the specific topic of that course is it's basically teaching to the university's curriculum. So it's not broadly applicable.
I gotcha. Yeah, because my daughter's in accounting right now, and then she sort of hates it, of course. And she's like, and I was like, well, I'm pretty sure, like, if you need help, like, I can just like ping Aaron, and he'll be like, yeah, this is what you would do.
Yep.
But I don't know, like high school accounting, there's probably a big market in there because
there
every high
probably
school
is.
does it.
And I freaking love accounting. Still do. I was an accounting major. I was a CPA there for a second, and I just love accounting so much. So yeah, that's an interesting idea. Steve and I have not ruled out doing more full on like accounting /business course.
Yeah. I will say this: you always have a fallback if you hate being a developer, because good accountants are so hard to find.
There
Ones
aren't
that actually
any.
like look out for you. Like
No.
they're all fine. Well, they can do numbers, but like none of them are like have your best interests at heart. Like you have to go to them and like,
Yes.
can I do this? And they're like, oh yeah, you can do that. I was like,
It's
why
like
didn't you
they
tell
it's
me
like
this
they
3 years ago?
forget you exist until, it's you email them and you're like, "Hey, when are my documents due?" And they're like, "Oh man, they were due 2 months ago." And you're like, "Why didn't you should have told me something?" Like I know that it's the same every year, but you got to reach out and be like, "Hey, here's what I need from you." I know, accountants are the worst.
That's great. Well, so on your the first course, screencasting, are you do you consider it complete, or are you going to kind of revisit it, or is it just good to go?
It is complete, and we're going to completely redo it. So it is. It's pretty good right now. I think it's a good, solid effort. I think it needs a little bit of love, and so that is the goal for the first month of next year. So January of 2025. Steve and I are going to redo, just from the ground up, we're going to redo screencasting. And so the shape of that is going to be, I will teach the philosophical course, which is the only course that we have right now. So I'll teach that on like why you want to do it, how to prepare your material, how to prepare yourself, tips for recording, that sort of stuff. And then Steve is going to teach a series of basically like add-on courses or adjunct courses for every popular editor, because Steve's been a video editor now for more than 20 years. He's used them all at some point, except Screenflow, which I will teach. I will continue to teach Screenflow, but he'll teach Premiere and DaVinci and I don't even remember what all of them are, Final Cut. So he'll teach all of those, but from a very like scoped down perspective of, as a screencaster, what do you need to know? Like, what is the 20% of Final Cut Pro that you need to know to be able to make really good screencasts fast? And so we'll have this whole kind of like collection of courses, with the hope being you buy like the flagship that like teaches you how to screencast, why you want to, how to be successful, and then you pick your editor of choice and you buy that as an add-on. So that's the idea, and we'll start on that in January.
I like that. So from the course, you talk about Screenflow. Is that still your sort of method? You record everything in Screenflow and then you
I sure do.
pass it to him, and he does whatever he wants to and whatever app he wants to. Okay,
that's right. It's crazy. I mean, Screenflow sucks, but it's the best of it's the best of the normie tools, and I think potentially one of the only ones that you can record directly into. And so the reason I like Screenflow so much is you can say, record my camera, record my mic, record my screen, go. And it records everything. Whereas with like QuickTime or something else, it's just kind of a mess to get everything else, to get it recorded somewhere else. And so, I record everything in Screenflow. I still do a rough cut to chop out any bad takes. And then I just ship the Screenflow file over the internet to Steve, and he exports it to Apple ProRes or something, and then puts it in whatever editor he uses and does it from there.
I like that. Yeah. It's funny because Screenflow annoys me to no end.
Yes,
but it's the only one I've actually found that you can actually do those three things. Your screen and your face and your mic, where everything else is not that handy.
No.
The worst though is like if you're not on a big monitor. I don't know if you've done this. If you're trying to do it on your laptop, Screenflow will not go down small enough, so you have all this like extra stuff.
It's like very the drawer
like,
kind of hangs off the screen. It's crazy. There might be, Steve and I might have some news to share on that in the next 6 to 12 months, but right now it's a little early. But we are also aware of the pains of Screenflow, and I still recommend it because it's the only thing out there. Screen Studio is nice, but it serves a fundamentally different need. Screen Studio is like, I want to make a 1, 2, 3 minute demo of my application software, whatever. But I'm not doing like full-on editing, a course in Screen Studio. No way. So there's something missing there, and I think Steve and I have found a solution for it.
Oh, I love this. A brand new app. Mac app. Make
Mm-hmm.
sure it's a Mac app.
Oh, it
Well,
will
I
be.
guess technically Windows is probably bigger, but Mac apps are what we
Yeah.
all know and love. Screenflow is good. The one thing that bothers me about it is like you can't actually move the captions around. They're
Screen
just
Studio.
yeah, Screen Studio,
Yeah.
yeah. And so like when you try to make Instagram Reels, the captions end up coming out like under the like where your name is at the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
and just little minor things like that. It's
Yep.
just like why can't we move this around? Like I
I
don't get
know.
what's going on behind the scenes there.
I know.
But
And it seems like he does great. Like it seems
oh
like even
yeah,
despite all those issues, there are a few other things about it. It seems like he's just constantly selling copies, and so I think it's a good space to be in.
yeah, definitely. I think the whole screencasting thing should continue to grow, in the future compared
Yeah.
to, which I don't know. You're very good at picking things that are sort of will be around forever and doesn't go
That's
too
the
much out
hope.
of date.
That's the hope. That's
Yeah,
why. That's why I'm glad. That's why I'm glad I'm not a React guy.
yeah,
One, I don't like it, but two, it moves so fast. Like I feel like all the React instructors are constantly trying to keep up with the big releases, and that just feels exhausting.
hmm for sure. And then, well, like SQL, that doesn't really change, does it? Like
No.
maybe. I mean, I think MySQL 8 changed a bunch of crap and broke stuff, but that was it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Even Postgres moves faster than MySQL, but it's still like people don't update their databases terribly quickly. So, you're running, let's say you're running Postgres 15, 16. I think we're currently on 17. Let's say you're running Postgres 14, 15. You're not really in a hurry to want to upgrade one of your core pieces of infrastructure. That feels scary to me. But more than that, Postgres itself can't change. Like it can get better and add new features, but it can't fundamentally change terribly much from release to release because then people would stop using it, right? And so I feel like that's a little bit of a difference between React. I feel like React is constantly shipping experimental stuff and basically changing how everything works, whereas Postgres can't really get away with that.
Yeah, it just reminds me of the good old trusty jQuery. I'm pretty
Mm-hmm.
sure you could like have a jQuery 1 app right now and just throw in the brand new version of jQuery. It would probably still work.
Yep, exactly.
That's amazing. Yeah, yeah. I think more people should try to do that, but I'm sure
Yeah,
that's so hard, especially when you have all these new ideas and things
yeah.
change. You're like, oh yeah, that was a dumb idea.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's super interesting. So, what other courses you got coming up? Anything you want to talk about yet?
Let's see.
Besides
So
screencasting redo?
yeah, so the screencasting redo is our big undertaking for first probably 2 months of next year. Honestly, we have completed a guest course. So I had a guest instructor fly here to Dallas, where I am, and record an entire course here. That will probably come out in February or March, and it is a Rails on SQLite course, teaching you basically how to go from zero to MVP as quickly and as with like high quality, like not just ship a bunch of crap. And so that'll come out probably in February, and then after that, we're gonna try a little bit of an experiment and go maybe down market. So a lot of what I've done so far is very like intermediate level stuff. It's not for people who are just getting started. You could take the SQLite course not being being fresh out of school, and you'd probably learn a ton, but it starts out pretty quick, and we go pretty deep. And so that, I think, I like teaching that stuff. It does take a lot out of me because it's just so much harder to teach intermediate material. And also the market is just so much smaller. And so after we finish screencasting early next year, I think I'm going to do an introduction to SQL. That's going to be like a short, maybe 2-3 hour course, very cheap, and very like, here's what a select statement is. Here's what an update statement is. Because I think I live in a world where it's like, nah, nobody would ever want that. That's so silly. Why would any? No, everybody knows that stuff. And then you go to I don't know, you go to any course platform anywhere and it's all intro stuff. And it's like, okay, come on. Like, that obviously makes sense. There are way more beginners than there are intermediates. Like, use your head for a freaking second. And so I'm going to try to do that. It's a little bit of a mismatch with my audience because my audience is like senior engineers. But it's a very good match with the internet. And so it's going to be I think it'll be a big SEO play. This will be very different than what we've done in the past, which is like build up hype on Twitter and YouTube and then launch it to all of, the people that follow me. This is going to be basically like, hey y'all, it's done. If you know anyone that would like it, it's out there. But I don't expect most people that follow me to need a course like this. So that'll be an experiment. We'll see how that goes.
I think you might be surprised. Like, I don't know. I still Google the very, very basic SQL stuff. It's like anytime I need to do something besides whatever Eloquent is, it's like, well, let me go Google because I can't remember what any of this stuff does. Especially like for me, is like the joins is where it gets super confusing and what to index and do all this basic stuff. It's like, everybody should already know this probably, but dumb old Eric don't know, so he's gonna he's right up your alley. But it's also really good too though, because that would actually transition well, because once you get them signed up to there, then after they go through it, then now they're on the intermediate level, they're ready to continue those learning steps. So I love that.
So that'll be interesting. We'll give them an intro to SQL, and then maybe they can pick their flavor. They can do, mastering Postgres or high performance SQLite or something like that to carry on learning. So trying to round out the offerings in this education empire. There's just so much to do. But this will be so much easier for me to do. I could probably sit down next week and record an intro to SQL with zero prep whatsoever. And so I'm very much looking forward to that versus I'm still finishing Postgres and I've still got, dozens of printouts of docs everywhere because I'm like, I got to make sure I get all this right because this is, these are intermediate people and I don't want to lead them astray. But with like intro people, I just know it all cold because I've been doing it for so long. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's awesome. So your guest instructor, is he using your office? Is he same backdrop, same everything?
He was. It was interesting. So we flew him here, and he sat in here and recorded. He brought a few extra trinkets for the backdrop to make it his flavor a little bit. But yeah, he used my camera, my mic, my lights, my desk, my monitors. We just plugged in his computer. And got Screenflow on his computer, and that was basically it. And then we saved them all. Like before he left, we saved everything to my Synology NAS that's in there, so my network attached storage device. And then Steve just logs into that NAS and pulls them off and starts editing. So it worked out great. I am curious to see. The production worked out great. I'm curious to see how the distribution and the selling of that does, because this will be the first one where I'm not the instructor, and we'll see what kind of pull the Try Hard brand has when it's a different instructor.
That makes sense. So you sort of touched on that. Steve is not in your city, right?
No, unfortunately,
y'all are both
not.
Remote. So you actually have a computer in your apartment office, and you just put everything on that, and then y'all just have access.
I have a.
That's a pretty good idea.
It's great. I have it's a Synology network attached storage device, and it holds. I think I have got 5 drives in there. And I think the max usable storage is 22 terabytes or something, because it's set up in a RAID configuration. And so that is just always on. It runs. It's wild. It is like a computer. It runs Linux. And so I could install PHP on it and run Laravel apps on my Synology, but I don't really have a use for it. But so I drop everything onto that Synology, and then we use a tool called Tailscale, where Steve can just mount the device on his computer. So he can open Finder, and it looks like an external drive, and he can just click on it and browse through it. Of course, transferring is slow because it's from Dallas to Boise, but it's just incredibly practical. And I saw the other day, I was adding some new ScreenFlow documents, and I saw that some had been labeled green. And I was like, I texted Steve and I was like, did you put these green dots here? He was like, oh yeah, I thought that was local. And I didn't know that you could like in Mac Finder, you could like add labels to stuff. And so I think he's using that to keep track of what he's edited and what he hasn't. But it's very like, it surprised me because it is just a local device to both of us, even though the internet separates us. It's very cool.
That is pretty sweet. What about, do you keep every video you ever make, you keep all the raw footage forever?
Yeah. I'm back and forth on that. I have for the courses so far. For a lot of the YouTube videos, no, I don't.
Right. Yeah.
But for the courses so far, I have. I don't know that it's important. I don't know. It just makes me nervous to delete like course material. Once we hit, I think we've only used 2 terabytes of storage. Once we start bumping up against the limit, we'll probably delete some of the old stuff, but no, I still have it all. And I'm sure Steve does too. I'm sure he's got a copy of it over on, his working drives over there. So, and it's backed up. Like I back up the Synology to Backblaze B2. And so I just have copies everywhere, which feels excessive.
That's good though. Like for me, like I have copies of nothing. Whatever, once I hit publish, I just go and delete. But of course I'm not making, courses or selling anything, so it's just like whatever, I don't care anymore. Just be gone, get off my computer. But yeah, that's a pretty good. I like the tags too, so I use tags. Have you ever used Hazel Mac app?
Oh man, that rings a bell. I feel like I used that years ago.
Yeah, so I still use it because everything.
What does it do?
So it can basically watch Finder or watch files and just do stuff automatically. So like when I download a file, it'll tag it blue and put it in the downloads folder, and then anything tagged blue that's older than like 14 days, it just automatically deletes off of the downloads folder. So that way I never have to like clean up anything. It just automatically handles all that. And then the other thing, I don't do it much anymore, but used to, it would I had it set up to auto compress images, like featured images for the Laravel News website. So I would just drop them in a folder and it would automatically run the thing. But now it's like, whatever, I'm paying for PickPerf, and I'm hoping they handle all of it because it's just something else I don't really want to think about or deal with. But I don't know. It's still a neat little app to me. It's just, it feels like it's from the 80s, but it still works.
Man, I love those single purpose little Mac apps. Steve and I were just talking about that today. Like, I feel like back in the early 2010s, late 2000s, there were so many cool little Mac apps that just did a few little things. And we're taking some inspiration from those as we start to think about what kind of software we want to build, if any. But those are just so fun.
Yeah, like the first one that comes to my mind is, remember the Bartender app? I mean, I still use it all the time. I love Bartender. It's awesome. Yep. Yes. So I know you've already talked about this on 40 other podcasts. So you've went from full time to or from working full time to now being a business owner full time. How's your transition? Still going good? I mean, it seems like you're it seems like every day you're publishing something new. So are you at the burnout stage yet?
Oh man, it's funny you say that because it doesn't feel like that. It feels like every day I'm behind and should be doing way more. So that's nice to hear from the outside. It looks like it's going well. It is actually going well in terms of like we're making money. We're surviving. We are, I think at this point, default alive. So that part is going exceptionally well. And I'm not blind to the fact that is not the case for most people. It was not as you know, it was not some calculated thing to like go out on my own. Steve and I both got laid off. Like they laid off, fully half of the company that we were working at. And Steve and I were a part of that. And so it has been perhaps more stressful than I would have liked. I've got 4 kids, 2 sets of twins. All of them are under 4. I've got two 1-year-olds and 2 3-year-olds, which is crazy. My wife stays at home, obviously, because somebody's got to take care of those 4 kids. And then even with my wife at home, that's still not enough adults at home. And so we have an au pair at home as well who helps take care of those kids. And so, without my wife, I would just be completely 100% hosed. The fact that she wants to be a stay-at-home mom has helped us out a whole lot. But that also means we've got 7 mouths to feed, between the 6 of us and the au pair. That's a lot of people. And so it's been incredibly stressful. We came out of the gate. Let's see, we got laid off maybe in March. And then I think in April we decided, like, very quickly thereafter, like, hey, we're not going to go get jobs. Let's try this out. And then in July we released High Performance SQLite. And then in October we released Mastering Postgres. And so that's just a ton of work. I mean, each of those courses is more than 100 videos, and there have been YouTube videos all along as well. And I don't know. I'm loath to give advice of like, why do everybody have a calm life, have a calm business, don't work very hard, because I just don't think that is possible. I think a lot of that advice comes from people that have made it. And it's like, you mean your millions of dollars help you have a calm business? That makes sense to me. And so, that has always rubbed me the wrong way when these uber successful people are like, you guys just need to slow down a little bit. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So, looking back, I don't think I could change much about it. Because we started from a standing start. We started with $0 in the bank and had to get back to working salaries. And we've done it, more than done it. And now that we have, I think we're going to slow down quite a bit. So that's part of the impetus behind redoing screencasting, because that material is very easy because I've already done it. And then doing the intro to SQL, again, very easy material, because now we have these sales that are like propelling us along from these other courses. And so we had to come out of the gate super fast to be able to make this work, and we did. And now I think we've bought ourselves a little bit of runway just to kind of slow down for a little bit. So that's the goal. I'm incredibly grateful that it's working at all, but make no bones about it, it has been very difficult.
Yes, I totally get that. Like my wife stayed at home. I only have 2, so I figured out what caused it, and we stopped it. Unlike Aaron, but man, like just her staying home for now my oldest is 16. Like those 16 years has actually been really, really nice. Not because of course she gets to spend all the time with them and do all that stuff, but just like doctor's appointments, school drop-offs, school pickups, sporting
so many
things.
doctor's appointments.
Like,
how are they always sick?
I know. And then she's like, well, I think I want to get a job. She's like, because I kind of hate being at home all the time. And it's like every time she says that, it's like the next 3 weeks, it's just like every day there's something she has to go do for the kids. And it's just like, it's going to be, until they can drive, it's like, it's so hard to get all the stuff that needs to be done when you have kids. It's crazy. It's like, I don't remember our parents doing that, but I don't know. Maybe it's just different now.
Maybe. But yeah, it's hard work, man. Over Thanksgiving, of course, I was not working, and our au pair wasn't working as well, because, she gets holidays and stuff. And so that was a 5-day stretch of just me just doing childcare stuff. And I'm like, this is impossible. This is so difficult. I always come home for dinner and bedtime, and I'm usually there when they wake up for breakfast. And then on the weekends, of course, I don't work. I spend all my time with them. And so I've had tastes of like, God, this is hard. But that 5-day stretch of no childcare in sight, no kids' school, you're just like there with 2 3-year-olds and 2 1-year-olds. That was tough, man. That was hard.
Yeah, I don't miss those days. I did not enjoy the baby stage. I like the 6, maybe 5. I don't know, when they can talk and communicate and you like have conversations. That was my favorite age. And then it's funny how, like, this is totally off Laravel topic, but like how your role changes as a parent, as your kid grows. You start off being basically the only care, they just need you for everything, and then all of a sudden, now I'm at the point where basically I'm just the psychiatrist to my kid, or psychologist to my kids, because high school drama. So anyway, I find that fun, how you grow as a human when you have humans.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for I love my kids dearly, and I don't want to wish away any time with them, but I am excited for like when they hit 4. I think that's gonna be a fundamental change for me.
Yes. I don't know. Fun times, man. Go back and relive all that. Make sure you take lots of videos. That's something we're
trying. Yeah.
Okay. We have tons of pictures, but like back 16 years ago, the cameras weren't that good. But, but now we don't have near enough videos, and it's sad to go back and like, oh man, I remember how cute they were and their little voice and the way they pronounce things, and we have none of that on video. It's like, we failed. But yeah, that's great. Well, what else you got going on? Anything fun and exciting that we missed that you want to tell people to go sign up for?
I am speaking at Laracon EU in February. Are you coming?
I am not.
You're not. Okay, so I'm speaking at Laracon EU in February, and it has yet to be revealed to me. No, it has yet to be revealed to the public what I am speaking about. But I'm creating. I've created maybe half of, so I need to finish. But I'm creating a new library for a little bit of a more seamless interaction between Laravel on the back end and JavaScript on the front end. So it will work with Inertia. It doesn't replace Inertia, but it provides a little bit of a nicer experience for getting back and forth between the two. So that is a little tease. I can't say much more because one, it doesn't have a name. It's got to have a name. It's got to have a great name. I'll probably ask Taylor to name it for me. And then two, it's not finished yet, so I got to do that before February. So that's the other big thing on my mind right now.
Wait, so you're creating a whole brand new thing just for a conference talk?
Yeah. So that was an oopsie doopsie.
This is why you're famous. This is why you're famous right here.
This is why
nobody has the time for that.
So what happened? You see, what had happened was I was working on this library. I was working on a site. I was working on either our course platform or my personal site. I don't remember. And I kind of like invented or like created this paradigm, and I was like, hey, this is kind of nice. I like this a lot. And I couldn't justify spending too much time on it. And I thought, well, here's what I'll do. I will submit a talk to Laracon EU. And then if they pick me, I'll finish it. If not, that's perfect. I don't have to touch it again. And they picked me, and I was like, shoot, now I got to finish this thing. So yeah, a little bit hoisted by my own petard there, but it'll be cool. It'll be worth it. I'm excited for it to be out there.
That's sweet. I mean, that's next level. I mean, your little motto is what? Try hard. So that goes right along.
This qualifies.
With that. So, yeah, it goes. That's not only try hard, but that's like a lot of work and effort.
Boy,
that's big effort.
Yeah.
So are you doing Laracon AU this 2025?
I'm not. AU's tough.
I know.
AU's only going to happen when I can take my wife with me, and that's just not possible yet. Because I can't justify. It's got to be a week, like to get down there to do the thing and then to get back. That still feels tight, and I don't know. I just can't justify it yet. So AU and India are kind of off the table until we can make a couple strip out of it.
That's actually what we're doing. I can't go until the youngest turns 16, which would be 2026, and the wife wants to go. So it's like we got to have everything set up because it's right. It's always like November. School's in.
Yep.
And if we're not here to take them to school, then it's not going to happen. So it's like everything should be easier when they're both driving.
Yeah,
so that's our goal. As long as they don't trash our house with parties, hopefully we've trained them better.
They'll be fine.
We hope. But yeah, so Laracon EU in February, which I think would be amazing. I've always wanted to go to Amsterdam, but again, haven't made it all the way over there. Laracon US, I assume you're gonna.
I hope I can
something?
MC again. Every year I ask Taylor at some point, hey, can I MC? And so far he's said, sounds good. And we'll just, we're gonna ride that train as long as we can. That's the goal.
Yes, that's you described Taylor perfectly. It's always like I'll text him something, and he'll be like, yes, and then
Thumbs
it's
up,
like
yeah.
that's it. You don't hear anything else. You're like,
Yep.
Okay, I guess we're good.
Yep. And that's like literally the last I heard. And I showed up at Laracon. It was in Dallas this year. I showed up at Laracon Dallas, and I was like, I'm emceeing, right? And he was like, Yep. I was like, okay, good. I just want to make sure that like they're, we're still on the same page here.
That's so good. Oh, all right. Well, if you have nothing else, I think we'll wrap it up here, and we'll get this edited and published out. And I appreciate you taking the time this afternoon to come and do this. This is fun.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me.
It's the whole reason I started this, is just because I thought it would be fun to talk to people, and it does its thing. So
this is great. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
All right. Well, I appreciate you, and until next time, everybody, go follow Aaron, and we'll have all his things in the show notes and all the other things. Everything he's building. The show notes are going to be like 14 pages long of everything he's built, but we're going to have them all right there for you.
Perfect.
All right. Well, thanks again, Aaron.
You got it.